Tony has proclaimed, and I don't know who else has done this because this was a season of great expectations. Tony has proclaimed, and I don't know if he's first, the New York Knicks are cooked. Cooked. That you can watch Boston and Cleveland play and know that that team can't beat those two teams. And it's stark to see because when the Knicks had Mitchell Robinson, they destroyed the Cleveland front court in a way that took me totally off guard. The changes between those two franchises when the Knicks have indeed elevated, to see Cleveland elevate that much more, where you're like, holy, Boston's having all sorts of trouble keeping up with Cleveland. Like, I don't know if it's just because Mobley's usage rate is something that they're working around more, but the New York Knicks have a better team than they've had. This team is better than the last two Brunson-led teams. Like, I'd rather have Karl Anthony Towns and Bridges in this kind of offense, but they're not as good as the top of their conference. That part's obvious. It's not just that they have some problems at home. Those two teams, Cleveland and Boston, look better than them.
Dan, the Knicks are officially cooked.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Here's the thing, right? They're 0-7 against the top teams between OKC and the two teams in the East being Boston and Cleveland. They got spanked by Boston, got spanked by Cleveland. The issue is this. They have an elite offense between Jalen Brunson, between Karl Anthony Towns, who's been playing amazing, Bridges, Hart. All these guys are very good on offense. Their problem has been defensively. Karl Anthony Towns might be the worst defender in the NBA. Wow. They're drop coveraging on everybody. Luka would like a word. No. Like, statistically, if you look up some of the advanced stats on Karl Anthony Towns, he is legitimately the worst defender in the NBA. So when you have guys like Porzingis, when you have guys like Mobley, just in the East, that are going to give him trouble, it's like this Knicks team was supposed to be built to beat those teams. They're, 38-19, 38-20, whatever they are right now, and they are not even close.
I don't know how many people do sort of the defensive metrics required to understand what Gobert was doing for Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota.
Dan.
That made that the best Minnesota team of my lifetime. Minnesota has fallen back, at least in part, because they can't pair those two guys together anymore, and they had to just get out from under salary. Like Minnesota, how often do you see that in today's day and age, where a team doesn't feel like it could keep its best team together in basketball because it can't? Because Karl Anthony Towns got traded, and all of us were like, we know he's a very nice player, and that's exactly the kind of player that New York would want, but also that's a hell of a lot of money, and I think he's a number two.
Well, we just saw Dallas do it with Luka. So, like, that's kind of the most extreme example where they're like, I don't know if we can keep this team together with Luka going forward as our Supermax player. But when you look at some of the stuff that Gobert was taking off the plate of Karl Anthony Towns, he was able to kind of make him into a 3 where he didn't have to really worry about playing defense. Now, if you're the anchor of a defense like Hartenstein was a couple of years ago, where you let him walk, and then you're waiting on Mitchell Robinson.
I love that you said it that way.
That's how you say it.
I know. I love that you did
it. Thank you. So you're hoping that Mitchell Robinson, who hasn't played in 2 seasons, is the lifeline that's going to save the defense that Tom Thibodeau puts his hat on. It's like
Mitchell Robinson, who Mike Ryan calls trash.
I mean, I don't even remember the last time I thought about that guy.
You do remember the last time you thought about that guy.
It was probably about 2 years ago. 2 years ago. I haven't seen him since.